Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. I keep going back to that. Freemasonry and Satanism. And I'm reminded of the Freemasonry Bible. It's got the Freemasonic compass and square there. In the Bible, it has the pictures of the candlestick, the Bible on the pedestal where the guy kneels down and swears under threat of death, having his throat cut to keep everything secret. I have to make another video on this book. But if you look at this Freemasonic Bible, and you see King Solomon's temple, you got to ask yourself, what is the basis of the Freemasons? What is here's the desert. What are the connections to Israel, Zionist, the Kabbalah? Remember King Solomon of the King Solomon Temple in Jerusalem that was built twice, destroyed twice, and it's prophesied they're going to build it a third time to bring about some end times. Pretty interesting pictures. And if somebody were a thinking person, they would be scratching their head and asking some questions. What does all this mean? So I've been saying that Freemasonic Bible, that the Freemasons are just an extended arm of the Kabbalistic Jewish people, Illuminati types, Zionist types, secret societies that have a tight-fisted control of our world and are up to no good with this new age and new world order. I made a lot of videos. This is 119 part 2, a continuation of the Phoenix journals, journal number 20. Regrettably, when I did part 1, it was a lot of pre-information, so I really didn't get to the information I wanted to share. The Mossad Connection, that would be the Secret Service for Israel. Number 20, Hot Foot for the Phoenix. The Phoenix Rising. So Mossad, Secret Service, spies for Israel. Israel, Zionist. I looked on the J post today. Found a few pieces of information that were important. Apparently, we the people are not to know the truth about what's going on. Apparently, for whatever reason, yet again, the last couple thousand years, it happens all the time, but they're saying anti-Semitism is on the rise. Scratching my head and saying, I wonder why. So anyways, I went on the jpost.com. You can go on that too. That's Jerusalem's, a major city in Israel's English newspaper. And you can read the articles and go below and read the comments and see what the people are saying. You're going to find out that a lot of what I've been saying, you can read from their own comments. they don't, I guess they don't think that we're smart enough to go look and see what they're saying, and what they think. But here's the article. I went to the J-Post just on a hunch for this video when I start reading from the Phoenix Journals here in a minute. But it says here, and this is dated currently, it was in today's edition, the March 24th, 2017 on the J-Post. So it says here, Washington, the borderless threat of anti-Semitism fueled in recent years by nativist political forces. And the masking power of the internet requires a borderless response, several American experts said in testimony before a House committee hearing on the matter on Wednesday. So I thought to myself, what is nativist political forces that would be fueling anti-Semitism? So you know me, I went and looked it up. So what is this nativist political forces? Right there above my finger. Nativist. That would be seeing an increase, a measurable spike in reported anti-Semitic activity recorded in Britain, France, Germany, Scandinavia, Hungary, Poland, and the United States. Offers clear evidence of a rolling and interconnected phenomenon. I've been going over the Encyclopedia Judaica, and this phenomenon's been going along for thousands of years. Would that be a phenomenon, or would that just be a reoccurring event? The panel members said several called on Congress to preserve funding for the State Department's Human Rights Division and its foreign aid budget, as well as funding for Justice Department's Civil Rights Division in order to combat the rising threat. So I guess the threat was the Arabs, the Muslims, terrorism, and they've been pretty much destroyed. They're trying to take out Assad, and they keep talking about Iran next. So anyways, when people wake up to this stuff and do some research, scratch their head and say, what the heck's going on? Why did they do 9/11? Inside job. And apparently Israel had a hand in it. Look up Webster Tarpley's book, Synthetic Terror. Judy Wood's book on 9/11, and so many more websites, pictures. Building 7 wasn't hit by a plane, but they pulled it. And apparently a wealthy Jewish guy owned it, said to pull it. Silverman, whatever his name is. So now they're with President Donald Trump in office. So they want to have more money and start combating this new phenomena, threat of the rise in anti-Semitism in all those countries. I guess if the truth be known, the people controlling the world, trying to bring about a new world order, a new age, as we just saw in the Freemasonic Bible, involves the Freemasons and Israel, King Solomon's temple, some big prophesized religious, apparently satanic Luciferic event involving the Kabbalah and secret societies. But they don't want us to know. They don't think that people like me or anybody watching this video should be looking into this stuff. Go about your business. Keep calm. There's nothing going on over here. Don't worry about those Arabs. There's always been wars. It's not going to happen to you in your country. Nobody's going to crash the stock market. release some kind of plague in the sky with that sky-spraying chemicals they dump every day, which, by the way, they were spraying like heck yesterday. And I have a serious problem with my breathing today. And so does my girlfriend. We both looked up and said, "Oh my God, this is horrific." And I'm coughing all night long like that. Got some medicated tea for my lungs here. And this happened to me a lot in Florida. I would see them coming with the planes, and it would be a blue sky, and then soon it would be pasty white, then it would be just horrifically filled with chemicals. And I would have to gasp for breath and race to the pharmacy to get some throat lozenges and medicine so I could breathe. The sky spraying of chemicals is not good. But let's get back to this video. So nativism politics apparently is bringing about the rise in anti-Semitism, and the governments are having committee hearings, House committee hearings, on how to combat it. So will they make criminals out of people who are seeking the truth? And again, what is nativist political forces which is causing the rise of anti-Semitism? So I looked it up. I thought it meant one thing, but I was wrong. Nativism politics. Nativism is a political policy or practice of preserving or reviving an indigenous culture. Well, they're shipping all the Jewish people from all over the world for the past 100 years back to the Middle East. They started out way before 1900, in 1880, 1881, and before that, buying up properties and moving people there and creating little groups and farms and cities and towns. So the indigenous culture, are they trying to put all the Jewish people from all over the world in the Middle East and remove all of the people from the Middle East and sending them to places all over the country? It's been in the news. There's been protests about it. I watched a video on Sweden yesterday that was just horrific. People were screaming and yelling, and some of these people removed from the Middle East, North Africa, Middle East, etc., were saying that your cultures are impudent now. You're not having any children. You're all weak. And we're going to grab all your women and wives and daughters and rape them and make babies, and we're going to take over your whole culture. I couldn't believe it. What was the name of that video? I sent it to several friends of mine to look at. Let's look at my history here. It was unbelievable, the video. So I need to tell you the name. Still report, S-T-I-L-L, number 462. If you just put that in Yahoo YouTube search, still, S-T-I-L-L, report number 462. U.S. taking 100,000 Muslim refugees a year. That was the second one I watched. And the other one was called by Pat Condell, C-O-N-D-E-L-L, Goodbye Sweden. And the other one was, This is What Happened Last Night. Just type in those keywords on YouTube. The name of the video is This Is What Happened Last Night. In Sweden, and it has a pound sign and Sweden incident, and the video producer was bag.o.glass. Has 389,000 views. 47,389. But it was pretty clear, and even the politicians were speaking out. Like Angela Merkel, not too long ago, I watched her reaction when the people were complaining about all the Arabs being shipped into Germany. And she's looking at the crowd going, I don't understand what's going on here. Why are y'all concerned? and they're funneling them in. They fill the entire streets. There's plenty of videos on this, and they're mostly strong young men, and they're very vicious, and they have no compulsion about breaking into people's houses, according to these videos, and knocking out women or in the park and dragging them behind a bush and raping them. And but I can say that's not anti-Semitism, is it? You can watch the videos. Nobody's saying, hey, you're being anti-Arab or anything. So this nativism that's in this Jerusalem Post press release today, that's fueling anti-Semitism, involves preserving or reviving an indigenous culture. So maybe we people are waking up and are understanding why they did 9/11. We've all seen the consequences and all those countries overthrown. Is anybody supposed to believe that all those countries were in cahoots and caused 9/11? And then you can look at on Yahoo image site and see pictures of Greater Israel. You can, the evidence is clear, but if you pay attention to the evidence, you'll be called an anti-Semite if you point the finger at the cause. According to Fetzer 2000, opposition to immigration commonly arises in many countries because of issues of national culture and religious identity. And when you watch that video, this is what happened last night in Sweden by Bag O' Glass. And the politicians clearly say, we are doing this, and if the people continue to resist in the United States, in Germany, in Sweden, everywhere, we will step up the force, and this will happen. That's what he said. You have to listen to the video. But he was pretty clear. We, the people, don't have a say in this matter. The phenomenon has been studied in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States, and well as in Europe in recent years, where immigration is seen as lowering the wages of the natives. This nativism has been a general term for opposition to immigration based on fears that the immigrants will distort or spoil existing cultural values. In situations where immigration greatly outnumber the original inhabitants, nativistic movements can allow cultural survival. So, in the video, they were pretty explicit, these refugees from Africa and the Middle East, that the Germany and the other countries, with Sweden, that they were being imported to, probably even being coached and taught this stuff, and the United States, that our birth rates are down. 2 people are having 1 child. A lot of couples are having no child. And of course there is the propaganda for homosexuality and the rainbow agenda, transgenderism, pansexualism, and all that stuff. So they're promoting for we people in the U.S. and Europe. Told you, the sky spraying is killing my lungs. It's my opinion. And they were doing it incredibly. I videoed it. I'll be releasing another video on the sky spraying. So it's so weird that they're promoting all this alternate sexual activities, discrediting or trying to destroy family values. And in the what year is this book? I'm not trying to get too off on this conversation before I get to the limits to growth. The report of the Club of Rome's project on the predicament of mankind. That's what it says down there. So think about this. 1972. The Predicament of Mankind, 2nd edition. 1972 over here. Limits to growth. So they are way concerned about overpopulation. They got all these charts showing pollution and people. 1972. So these powers that be want to stop the growth in population. Back in 1972. And I have other books on this. And when I was watching that video, this is what happened last night in Sweden with those long trains of people marching through the street. You couldn't fit any more people in the wide streets and many miles long. Immigrants coming from the Middle East into Germany and other countries. And the immigrants were screaming and saying, we're going to rape your women and take over your country because you're weak and impudent and not having children. You can't have children. Your history is what they were saying in that video. So I'm saying something's contradictory here. There's supposed to be replacements. Apparently who's ever coaching these immigrants to come up there from North Africa, and the Middle East, that the people that are already living there, the citizens, are a dying race of people, so to speak, and that these immigrants from the North Africa, the Middle East, need to go up there and start populating with all the white women and European women and America. There's something very bizarre going on, and that, of course, would be part of the Hegelian dialectic, creating the two opposing forces. So what is it? Is it overpopulation, or is it a dying population? That's my point. 2017, watching that video, this is what happened last night in Sweden. And anybody watching that stuff on the news has to know that all these people are being intentionally displaced from the Middle East and North Africa. And Israel is growing and bringing Jewish people from all over the world under a program called Aliyah. So there is a nation empire building event taking place, and it's worldwide. It doesn't take a genius to see this. So when I was reading this thing on, they're going to be having hearings at the House Committee to make sure they have money and start addressing this rise in anti-Semitism, we should all wake up and see, what are they talking about? It's all about these immigrants that are upsetting people, and the political leaders on these videos, that one I just went over, I'm sure you can look up other videos, and the politicians are saying, it's going to happen. We've made a decision. You, the people, don't have a say in this matter. Worldwide. But the real reason is for the growth of the state of Israel, who has nuclear weapons now. And they are bombing the Hades out of Syria, trying to finish it off. And there is talk out there that Iran is next. And apparently the more we people of the world wake up, they're going to start enacting laws that nobody can actually blame the people that are responsible for it. The Zionist State of Israel, which is part of the Illuminati, the Rothschilds. There's books on this, Fritz Springmeier's Bloodlines of the Illuminati, and I've got 400 or 500 hours of videos on YouTube that anybody needs to, that I've been making since 2013. So I'm going to finish reading a little bit from this and just finish with my evidence that what this story is about before I read from the Phoenix Journal, which interestingly enough is kind of similar information back in 1990. So I think that's quite important to see the current events versus what I'm going to read. Our ability to fight global anti-Semitism and extremism hinges on having the resources to successfully engage in the world. So I guess the U.S. Constitution, Amendment 1, or our right to free speech, we won't be able to look up, even read from the newspapers and Wikipedia, and put together a rational thought process as to what's going on, because then you'll be accused of being an anti-Semite or something, or an anti-government belligerent, or inciting people to do some terrorist act, which I don't believe we have innocent people like me or anybody else that are doing terrorist attacks. If you've paid attention to the false flag events, including Boston bombing at 666 Boylston Street, and even the Sandy Hook with that one newscaster holding up the owl representing Moloch and the little owl on the US $1 bill, and the politicians and world leaders meeting in California at the Bohemian Grove throwing a baby under a giant owl. I could go on. The Switzerland tunnel opening with that satanic ceremony. Olympic shows, the Olympics with Lady Gaga, satanic show. Super Bowl halftimes, even with Madonna, Beyonce, Emmys and Grammys, Katy Perry. Go look up satanic rituals. There's no shortage of them on YouTube for you to watch the real show. And if you can't make up your mind that it's a satanic ritual, I don't know what to say. Watch some videos, buy some books. It even shows you what they look like in the Indiana Jones movies. And they tell us what they're going to do with the Hunger Games movies. There's so much stuff out there. There is a God, I believe, and I think that the people have been warned, and according to biblical prophecy, before the big bad event happens, everybody will be informed. So we can all make a choice, and the choice is pretty simple. God or Lucifer. Jesus or Satan. Don't believe the New Age and the New World Order propaganda. And people on the liberal side, the Democratic side here in the U.S., on some of the protests I've seen lately, are big signs saying, President Donald Trump, don't build that wall. We're a global people now. But the people don't understand what's going on. And then they're shipping all these people into the U.S. and Europe, the Arabs, and displacing. And if you look up Yahoo image site, I've said this before, just look up bombed buildings on Yahoo image site. And then there's a link that tells you what city, what date, what happened, and who said what. There were some Israeli soldiers who were laughing and said they enjoyed killing these Palestinian people, or enjoyed bombing all these buildings. Something wrong here. So, continuing on with this article in the Jerusalem Post, jpost.com, today, we haven't heard an affirmation of the Justice Department commitment to train law enforcement. So they need to train law enforcement on how to sniff out and identify anti-Semitic behavior. But technically, you know, even if they created a law that you can't talk about Israel or Jewish people, it's an illegal law, and the First Amendment gives us a right of free speech. So if you ever got arrested, you got to remember that they can't prosecute you for a law that's illegal, and you have to demand a trial by jury. Especially don't let the judge decide. They'll threaten you, which happened to me once, that if you request a trial by jury and you lose, the judge has promised you're going to go to jail. But if you let the judge make the decision and choose not to have a trial by jury, the judge promises you won't go to jail. But that's also a trick, because he doesn't have to keep his promise. Once the trial is had and everybody hears everything, with no jury, just the judge, he can say and do whatever he wants. And if there's a gold fringe on the flag in the courtroom, look at the flag, the American flag, you see a gold lacing around it, that means martial law. And once you acknowledge that courtroom, you're toast. If you see a gold fringe on a flag in a courtroom, you need to look at that judge and say, I do not recognize this court. And they can't do a thing to you. But they do plan, I guess, on starting to combat the increasing rise of anti-Semitism because of the policies of, I guess, taking all of the lands and countries and natural resources, oil, minerals, everything, and bombing all the properties and buildings and exporting whatever remaining alive Arabs there are to Europe and the United States. Even telling these people or saying that we're impudent and we can't make babies anymore and they have to replace the whole entire population. I know it sounds crazy, but I have more evidence here. Recent attacks in Brussels, Paris, Copenhagen targeting Jews have awoken European governments to the threat, said Rabbi Andrew Baker. Okay, moving on. Paul Goldenberg, National Director of the Secure Community Network, I love all these names, said right-wing extremist individuals and groups are increasingly modeling their counterparts in Europe, where anti-Semitism has been historically entrenched and attacks have been on the rise for years. So there will be legislation and all that to protect the Jewish people everywhere. There will be a protected class of people. If all this is true. And they've already probably had favored status with the banking system and other jobs of employment, including with in cahoots with the Freemasons. The rest of us probably have difficulty to get in those positions. You got to go through channels. Even more connected, extremist groups in the United States are borrowing, United States now, adapting, enhancing the tactics and strategies adopted in Europe, Goldenberg told the panel. So they're trying to say that here we are, all the citizens across the United States and cities and towns, we're all having meetings and in cahoots and trying to do things to go out there and harm Jewish people. I've got numerous Jewish friends in the city I live in, and anything could be further from the truth. Although not every anti-Semitic individual, group, manifestation, threat, or incident in Europe and the USA is connected, they are increasingly the context for each other. So just because I'm speaking up, talking the truth, and they made these laws, they could say that I was fueling the fire, giving other people information who will do the terror act, hence I am complicit. Is that what they're going to say? It is vital that the Congress and U.S. government identify, analyze, and respond to the cross-Atlantic link between anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitic attacks. Well, I can tell you one reason why there might be an attack. In the Middle East, I mean, everybody's been, countries overthrown, presidents killed, buildings bombed. A lot of people know what's going on. I've been making videos from information right out of the Encyclopedia Judaica. Zionism has been going on a long time. It's been a long, tough road. These people have been battling and fighting and propaganda and doing things to get their own people to get in line, creating artificial anti-Semitism. In other words, they would instigate situations to happen and get the news out there so that people that were not Jews would get upset when they read it. And then there were people being normal, emotional people as we are. You would express your anger, yelling, screaming, calling your congressman, senator, saying, what the heck is going on? Do something. So the tension rises. This definition would serve as an essential tool for interpreting whether harassment, intimidation, and other seemingly discriminatory behavior directed at Jewish students is motivated by anti-Semitism and should be investigated. So they want to start passing some kind of laws and code as to the activity. And what do you want to bet that none of we the people will be part of those decisions? So it's nativism that's causing the rise in anti-Semitism. They're shipping people at night into all the countries. I've double researched this, so just try to make it brief, as seemingly impossible as that is. but refugees being snuck into the U.S. on UPS flights. So I have all these pages here that you can go look that up. Apparently some people spotted a UPS plane landing at night, and 30 buses filled up with people from the plane. Here's a lot of comments from people. And says here, people are talking about this. I didn't pre-read this. So they're blaming President Obama for bringing Ebola patients against the people's will into the U.S., illegals against the people's will, now jihadists against the people's will. Our Congress is complicit and should be arrested for sedition. Ah, that's weird. This guy is saying what I've been saying. Our military must act now to defend against enemies, foreign and domestic. Generals, do your sworn duty and arrest the Muslim traitor now. So some people didn't like Obama. Obama cannot be held accountable. Another one says, Kim Davis should be in jail for trying to enforce her version of Sharia law. AIDS was a eugenist answer to the question by the globalists, depopulate the planet with all these biological weapons and plagues and flus they're working on and letting loose every now and then, and continuing to raise the fear factor. So my point is, please go look this up. I've looked it up. I've watched some videos. One of the videos I was watching right now, that would have been the still reporting number 462. And he was pretty thorough. The still report is the web provider on YouTube. But it was other material I got here is fact sheet, Jews Control America by Brother Nathaniel, his videos. So I do a lot of research, see who says what. It says here, Jews control the money, the Rothschilds, Goldman Sachs, Warburgs, Hamburg. Jews control the media, Murray Rothstein, Summer Redstone, Brian Roberts, Sidney Bass. So there's names here. Jewish controls Congress, Jewish lobbies, AIPAC, ADL, Anti-Defamation League, the National Jewish Department, and the Jewish Coalition, and all. It's just billions of dollars with all their hacks on Capitol Hill. Jews control the White House. We've seen all the Jewish advisors to George Bush and Obama. Jewish control policy. So they're controlling policy in our country. I ran out of ink, so it got a little vague there. But you can look this up. Jewish control military, Jews control corporations, Jewish control corporations, education, Jewish control culture. So all these things that are going on. And we know from my other book here that apparently, clearly, not apparently, but the Freemasons, their own Bible, has all these references to King Solomon's temple on the top here. I made a whole video on that. That would be series number 1, part 1. I'll make another one. But I read this thing quite a bit, and there's no doubt in my mind that the Freemasons are a offshoot or one of the arms of Zionist Illuminati world control, New Age and New World Order. And I've been going over this stuff, reading it thoroughly. So just more evidence I had there. What else do I have left here before I start reading from the Phoenix Journal? This is the support of President Donald Trump for the state of Israel. So Trump and Clinton blast the United Nations UNESCO statement on Jerusalem. This is October 16, 2016, before the election. And you know, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were catering to Israel, the Jews, who control New York, D.C., much of the country, for the money. So if you go against those people, the Illuminati type secret societies and the Zionist state of Israel, you're certainly not going to be the president of the United States. The Trump campaign said the United Nations attempt to disconnect the state of Israel from Jerusalem. We saw the pictures in here of the King Solomon's Temple in the Freemason Bible. And there's plenty of information, I've gone over it. But I'm just showing you how obvious the connections are. Is a one-sided attempt to ignore Israel's 3,000-year bond to its capital city, and is further evidence of the enormous anti-Israel bias of the UN. So I guess you could say the United Nations is an anti-Semitic organization, according to this. Go look up the document. So if you don't want all these Palestinian peoples killed, all their land taken away, and all the surrounding countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Egypt, and all this other chaos and anarchy caused to bring about this New Age, New World Order, and this much greater Israel, well, then you're an anti-Semite. You should be going along with this and embrace your pending slavery and being microchipped, according to the prophecies and warnings out there. So I went and did triple check on all this stuff. And then there was another one here, a Swedish alderman, an article, because I was watching that video of what's happening in Sweden recently. And again, write this stuff down when you watch my videos. Go look this video up. Pause mine, don't watch mine, go watch this, I'll be happy. This is what happened last night in Sweden. That's the name of the video. By bag.o.glass, Bag O' Glass, the video provider. And the date on that video, I guess it's current. It's pretty thorough. It makes the point, and we're talking about this because of the legislation, the House Committee, people in Congress, are recognizing the rise of what they call anti-Semitism. I might call it the Grand or the Great Awakening, which is what other people call it. The people are waking up. But back in '72, they were trying to say there's too many people. But a right-wing Swedish alderman said his party hates Muslims because the Jewish politicians and that the Jews control the White House. So the Swedish alderman, one of their political leaders, is aware who is behind pumping in all these Muslims into their countries with quite a bit of arrogance, not caring at all what the citizens think. And Mikael Höglund, an alderman in the city council of Upplands-Bro, near Stockholm, said in an interview published Wednesday, I'm trying to look for a date here, in the magazine Expo Idag, that the Swedish Democrats hate Muslims because of the Jews. Höglund singled out that one of the party's prominent lawmakers, Kent Ekeroth, who said in 2010 that his mother was a Jew of Polish descent. Ekeroth runs the Islam thing within the Sweden Democrats, Höglund said, but I am not a Jew, so I'm not fixated on Muslims. They contribute to the country. Höglund, who said he may leave the party to join the neo-Nazi movement. Whoa! Also said in the United States, it is the Jews who are pulling the strings. He cites President Obama's 3-day visit to Israel that week. He must do well in Israel to do well at home, Höglund said. This was, they have the power, but that's life. Sweden Democrats, a pro-Israel rights law party, opposes, and it calls itself the Islamicization of Sweden. So there is an Islamicization. They're trying to bring in Islamic citizens in Sweden. And if you go on YouTube, there's plenty of people crying and complaining and just shouting all they can. So the bottom line, it looks like this couple 100-year plan going back thousands of years. But the diaspora, when all the Jews were dispersed all over the world, over a couple thousand years ago, and they called it a diaspora. It was part of their religion, so they claimed they were from Israel, but there was no state of Israel. They were a people dispersed all over the world without a homeland. So their religion taught them. They were an oppressed people, and they wanted to stay oppressed, the high-up leaders in the organizations, because it kept all the people together. They did not want them to assimilate with the rest of us, because they were trying to do that, and so they had to create situations of anti-Semitism to get all the locals and people angry, to create the anti-Semitism so that they could get the Jews would huddle back together and keep their culture. According to my... So what else do I have here before I read from the... I had more evidence here on the U.S. planes converted to passenger planes. Again, I wanted to verify to myself that this was true. How much evidence could I get? So I went on Yahoo search. I put in that on the top here. And I got all these results. And you can do the same. And I got more results. For a total of 2,630,000, almost, results. 2,630,000, so I'm closing in on 3 million results. And there was some interesting websites. Again, some people were saying it's not true. So I found some more supporting information. This is that video I just talked about. Still report number 462. My finger is. I watched the video. When you print it out, it doesn't give you a picture. And there's people's comments. But he goes into the nitty-gritty details. Says here by one commenter, support, of course, UPS wouldn't admit it if it was true anyways. It would be a public relations nightmare. And as far as Snoops goes, that's a husband and wife team that literally work out of their basement. And ultra-liberal left-wingers that reside in California. So I think the Snoops people have already been proven to be deceivers. And one guy commenter write, this is criminal. It's white genocide. People need to hang for this treason. So again, if you wake up to the truth, recognizing the King Solomon's temple and all that other stuff in the Freemasonic literature, and they have lodges in our cities and towns all over the world in every country. So it's like a secret arm, the hidden hand of the elite banks, the Rothschilds, Illuminati, Zionist, Jewish types, and probably in cahoots with people in the Vatican and witchcraft organizations and all the other secret societies. Now that I've said all of that, you're probably scratching your head and going, wow, I thought we were going to go over the Phoenix Journals, number 20. Well, we are right now. And maybe it'll make sense because I went through all that. The Mossad Connection, so the secret services, like the CIA or the FBI in the United States, which apparently is under the control of these Mossad people too. Although I'm sure in our CIA, FBI, and police stations and sheriffs across the country, there are still some good people in there who probably want to do the right thing. They may not be able to do the right thing. They'll probably lose their jobs, and if they fight too hard or expose too much, they might lose their lives. How many people have already been assassinated? So I left off on the Phoenix Journal. Page, the topic, does anything even annoy you as a nation? American farmers are literally being turned out of their farms that have been in their families for generations because they can't afford to stay current in their debts. Their property is being legally confiscated through corrupt undercover and fixed judicial deals and bribes. So, you know, I wonder also with China having $1 trillion plus or minus in credit money that's owed to them from the United States. You know, could they just come over here and just start buying up properties and owning everything? Well, the answer is yes, and they have been, including with the Zionist Jewish people controlling the banking system since 1913. A lot of we the people are being attacked. How's that? All right, and we're going to start reading here. You can see what I highlighted. I'll try to read from the beginning here so maybe I can get a little context of a conversation flow going. From poison gas plants to rocket factories, from cannon forges to the nuclear sector, the danger has already been spread. Suppliers to President Saddam Hussein. A text of Mr. Hassman's secret statement makes clear that German links to the Iraq arms industry are far more widespread than previously believed. So who in Germany is involved in the manufacture and sale of arms? I suspect it's a lot of the elites, including Jewish banksters and Illuminati-type secret societies. You would think some sensibilities would prevail and these people would realize they can't be manufacturing and selling all these arms to countries like Iraq. What's going to happen with these weapons? They'll be used against us. There is another past discovery which I should recall to your attention in case you have forgotten. Do you ones remember the gigantic cannon components of the world's largest cannon, which was confiscated at a London airport headed for Iraq? Now, why do you suppose any idiot would ship that via London? Because it is total collusion. Remember, this is the Phoenix Journal in 1990. The British wanted the Iraqis to have it as long as they were going to use it against Israel. That's kind of strange. They objected and found it at the airport only after plans for the current event were finalized. So let me see if I got this right here. Because it was total collusion. The British wanted the Iraqis to have it as long as they were going to use it against Israel. They objected and they found it at the airport. So they were trying to give weapons to Iraq to use against Israel so they could have an excuse to attack Iraq. You see, I make no force upon you to believe me, but you seem set upon believing that which is fed to you through the controlled media and the secret shadow government. Why do you have such trouble believing that which the same ones tell you about these things? Why must you wait until there is nothing left? That's what I keep saying. Do we all have to wait until our country's destroyed to wake up? The plans are to take out it all. The plans are to take it all. Why do you continue to bury your heads and throw rocks at ones who speak truth unto you and onlay the truth for all the world to see? Do you think the deficit will walk away into the sunset? Just back in 1990. Do you think that the growing deficit over $400 billion a year can be solved with a 500 billion fix over 5 years. Somehow, even dealing with Earth's arithmetic, it doesn't work out for my mind, especially on how you are in a depression and cannot raise the funds for the first segment of 1991. So I remember in 2013 and 14, had some talk about it in 15, but there are always these threats about shutting down the government, cutting off Social Security, and all kinds of other benefits. They've been playing with our minds and our lives and our country. And then they're shipping in all these Arabs. Over 100,000 a year, going up 10% every year. They're going to clean out the entire Middle East, and I suppose that's part of Greater Israel. Alright, so anyways, that was going on. Look deeper is the name of this next paragraph. You have been prepared for your children. You have been prepared for your children to be left in that oven of a desert indefinitely. So the USA troops in the desert in Iraq. They tell you this is over and over. Do you ever see your children, fathers and husbands, washing a bit of sand off their weary, overheated bodies in a small bucket of warm water? How long do you believe they can endure out there cooking in tents with no facilities? Do you ever see any of the congressmen going without? Do you ever see any of the congressmen giving up a thing in order to not burden you, the people, more with this budget they have conjured for you? They most certainly keep their nice, fat, illegal raises, don't they? Which is more important to you? So this is the editor, author of this Phoenix Journal, ranting, I guess. It gets a little bit more interesting here in a minute. Doesn't it indicate war? Haven't your own military leaders in charge of the Desert Shield operation come forth and told you that you are already planned for war? So they plan for all these things. They're planning for one now, World War III. In my opinion. And the word's out there. Go and put that in the YouTube or internet search. See how many other people are seeing the warning signs. Didn't one of them tell you that nobody and no nations sends such masses of troops anywhere without having war? There was never an intent to invade Saudi Arabia. So what was there to defend? No children of the lie, you have simply been had again. So they deceive us all the time. Do you never weary of being had? I tell you nothing new, so I can find it a bit ridiculous that you despise me and my writings for projecting the facts. So be it. So apparently the author of these Phoenix Journals was under attack for what he was saying. Further, to march into all-out war, you have to have a participating incident. Get this. Which allows you to retaliate. Well, they did that with World War I. They did that with World War II. They did that with 9/11. They did that with all these false flags and bombings. They just had a bombing recently in London that's in the news in the Jerusalem Post I was reading about today. So they create these incidences, and I'm just wondering what big incidents will it take to actually bring the whole USA down. And when it happens, will everybody recognize it for what it is? That's my concern. Well, the best layer forth of retaliatory level incidents is the Israeli Mossad. Hearken unto my words, for it is not to be, for if it not be today, it will be. So in 1990, this guy says that the Mossad organizations will create an incident so that we will retaliate. A precipitating incident. So I'm thinking 1990, 2000, 2001. 11 years later, we had 9/11. Let's uncover some more Mossad activities. Now that you have reference for confirmation to activities of the Mossad, and you do not longer have to depend upon the space cadet to inform you, by way of deception. I ordered this book, I'm expecting it in the mail. By Way of Deception is the name of the book, by Victor Ostrowski, Ostrovsky, and Claire Hoy. We can perhaps spill a little more soup on your tie. I like this writer's style. The Israeli government has terminated so many of its militant or intractable adversaries. The Israeli government has terminated, murdered, so many of its militant or intractable adversaries around the world. So we just see here now they're trying to step up laws in the United States and the world so they can identify anti-Semitism, make it a crime, maybe even allow for assassinations of people who are starting to wake up and tell the truth and talk about the truth. We know they're spying on us with the cell phones, TVs, and everything else. So they just have to catch people, document it, send out the SWAT team, and maybe we're toast. Maybe they could use other kinds of technologies to take people out. Maybe if a predominantly city area, I'm not going to name any city, but a particular city that might have a general greater awareness of all this, they could create a huge event to take out everybody in that city. I hope this isn't true. I'm going worst case here, so we can all wake up and discuss it, and prevent it would be my idea. And I'm sure a lot of Jewish people here in the United States would not like to see this martial law event. Although it has crossed my mind, whose side will they be on? Will they be in the FEMA camps behind the wire with the rest of us? Or will they raise up their hand and say, hey, I'm Jewish, don't put me in there? Is that a fair question for me to ask my brain? I'm reading this stuff, seeing the pictures in the Freemasonic Bible, all about Jerusalem and King Solomon's Temple. I've made hundreds of hours of video on this stuff. So I got a lot of evidence that it's true, but the fact is, if you talk about the plans even back in 1972, and I have many books back then about these things, claiming that they were running out of resources and too many people. And if that's the case, then why are they shipping more people into the USA and more people into the European Union, all those countries, if we have too many people and not enough resources? And not enough jobs. Why would they do that? They're lying, they're deceiving. Back to this book. The Israeli government has terminated so many of its militant and intractable adversaries around the world that organized assassination procedures have been developed into an ultra-secret internal system. This is according to the Mossad participants themselves. So this one participant, Victor Ostrowski, wrote a book By Way of Deception, and apparently the powers that be in the world tried to ban his book and suppress it. It had an opposite effect in the USA. By Way of Deception, write it down. And if you go on used book sites, like I went on Ava Books and I bought one for $3.50 at free shipping, I suspect they'll go way up in price and you won't be able to get them sooner or later, like many other books I purchased. The Mossad regularly submitted execution lists with 100 or even more targets to the incumbent Israeli Prime Minister, according to this Israeli spy agent, who had the authority to review and approve the list by initialing each name on it. Those initials turned the roster into a collective death sentence for everyone designated on it. So all they have to do is have your name on a list, approve it, and they got assassins who will show up, or whatever other means, and take people out, according to this agent who worked for the Israeli Mossad. in the book By Way of Deception, back in 1990. Hunter-killer teams of specially trained Mossad agents from a most elite unit known as Kidon, K-I-D-O-N, Hebrew for bayonet, tracked down and murdered the marked men and occasionally women. Innocent family members or associates often perished with the targeted victims in the blast of Israeli terrorist strikes. The Israeli government recently blundered, however, as evil so often does. It provided confirmation of the truth of the stories when they took the disastrous, for them, move to ban the book listed above, By Way of Deception. They openly warned that the book would endanger the state of Israel and persons in its employ, that is, Mossad agents. Israel's attorneys obtained a court order banning distribution of the story in both countries. But the ban was indeed brief. In the U.S., it was overturned by the appellate court as unconstitutional within 24 hours. I hope you save that precious Constitution for such occasions in the future, for there will be increasingly greater numbers of ones come forth with the truth. So again, the First Amendment, free speech, so far is allowing it in the alternate news or books, that if people can find a publisher to get it out there, like a lot of these books I've gone over, like the report from Iron Mountain, the plans for all these alternate deceptions to keep everybody in line instead of the usual method of wars to subjugate all these citizens into a patriotic fever to go kill the enemy, while the other country is getting all their citizens riled up and patriotic and go kill the enemy. And the elites at the top were planning the whole thing, I'll bet the manufacturers for the shells fired at Germany from England probably was supplying Germany with the shells to fire back. Same manufacturer, same type of guns probably, same type of tanks, same manufacturer. Somebody's making a lot of money and killing a lot of us, destroying families, everything. There's no reason to be exporting and exporting all the people in the Middle East, those that haven't been bombed and shot and machine gunned, and destroying all the buildings and infrastructure, facilities, bridges, power plants in the Middle East, and then shipping everybody, calling them refugees all over the world in the middle of the night, where apparently we're supposed to be overpopulated as it is. Am I thinking wrong here? In the 3 days following the appellate decision to release the book, its U.S. publishers received more than 200,000 orders of it in all record time. They have been efforting to find a way to ban the journals. So this author is saying the same people want to ban the journals that I have in my hand with this information, but discounting it as a method of choice up to now, in belief that the less attention and work to the misinformation touters could stop the flow. So the mainstream government officials and media are just choosing to completely ignore the Phoenix journals back then. I might encourage anybody while they're still up, because there's just such a variety of topics. But to go on the internet and look up the Phoenix journals, like it says on the top here. And these are the 200, 150, 250 page books. And there's numerous pages of them. there's 120 of them. But bottom line is, if you click on this chart here, each one will open up in a PDF format. And in seconds you can download it and save it to a file. But if somebody were to get the whole 120 of these downloaded, which they want you to do, by the way, and I've done it, it just might behoove you for a huge source of information on so many different topics that, you know, it's right up there in the alley with this New Age and New World Order. So back to this here. So they've been trying to ban the journals, but they've just chosen to ignore it, assuming, and I know these people who are in charge of creating this New Age and New World Order, destroying Christianity, discrediting Jesus, convincing everybody there is no God, no Jesus, promoting the decadent agenda, pansexualism and all that, and promoting globalization and trying to destroy nationalism. Meanwhile, of course, Israel is a nationalistic promotion to control the global world. Get it? Got it? All right, here. Now they are face to face with our truth and find it too late to simply kill the writer or publishers because the results would be worse than the above scenario, and they know we have countless other available means of bringing forth truth if pushed into a corner. So these Phoenix journals, anybody watching this video, even tell your friends, if somebody lives across the state or across the country, send them an email, say, look at this link, download these 120 journals, and be completely amazed. I don't care which one of them you look at. And 200 pages or more, plus or minus. All kinds of secret information they don't want you to know. I want every reader to get the book. That would be the one about the Israeli spy. Hereby I ask George to carry it for you readers. I most certainly desire that Dharma have a chance to see it, for she gets little enough confirmation for her risk in writing these truths in the face of a firing squad. So people back then in 1990 were concerned about creating these Phoenix journals. Anyone will get far more than his money's worth if you get that spy book I mentioned. By way of deception. Or these Phoenix journals. Like I said, go online, just download it, save it to a file you create called Phoenix Journals, and do 10 or 20 of them a day, only 15 minutes. A couple days you'll have all 121 crazy library of information. I don't make nothing on this. It's free. Alright, so anybody will get more than his money worth if they buy that book by way of deception. I promise you then, and perhaps you will gain much healthier respect for the Phoenix Journals and the Expresses. So I'm not so sure what the Phoenix Expresses are. You will be informed about much more than insider indiscretions, about Secret Service murders. Secret Service murders, even the United States agencies have been accused of that. Presidents of other countries. And other dirty tricks. Israeli degenerated into a terrorist state when its government was subverted and corrupted by the nation's all-powerful Secret Service, the arrogant Mossad. The information is especially important for Americans because it traces many of your recent setbacks and defeats in the Middle East to the deceitful and self-serving maneuver of the Mossad. Like I said, if you go get Webster Tarpley's book, Synthetic Terror, thought I'd just go grab that book because I mention it a lot. 911 Synthetic Terror. Webster Griffin Tarpley. Just flipped it open. You can see all my little tabs. I read it quite thoroughly. It says here on page 222, NBC news station, tapes showed controlled demolition explosions. So this is so much proof. So looking at the index here on this Webster Tarpley, smarter guy than me. This is the introduction. Let's see if I lost my pages here. Here we go. Roots of 911, the globalization crisis of the 1990s. Well, that's interesting. These Phoenix journals are talking about that. It's in this book under the index. Insider trading, cell phones, MI16, and Mossad. Has Mossad here on page 319. Like I said, I read all this. It's all in here. It's all connected. Even the Jewish Canadian author, Henry Mackau, PhD in Canada, writes a book, Illuminati, the cult that hijacks the world. This upside down star, here's a regular star, but upside down, of course, is the symbol for Satan, Lucifer. And look at the all-seeing eye, the reptilian eye. And a lot of other people have been talking about the sky spraying and the HARP transmitters I keep talking about. Transmitters up in Alaska. They can pulse them like a sonic wave. Boom, boom. And when it bounces off the ionosphere and over some city, or a microwave frequency, and we know we don't stick our head in a microwave or our hand, they got these big transmitters and they're spraying heavy metals in the sky. So I'm sure that combination could cause me to have some of the distressing bronchial problems I have today. And they've been working for many years with the banks to convince presidents and leaders all over the world to borrow millions and billions, promising them a huge GNP, gross national product, making a lot of money, and improvements for their peoples. And when they wanted to build a power plant on some natives' creek, and the natives resisted, they would machine gun the natives. And this guy confesses all. I'm just saying the evidence is here. And of course I got another book, Underground Bases. Apparently elites, whatever they do, have an escape plan. Eustace Mullins, Murder by Injection, the Rockefellers back in the early 1910, 1920s and after, went way out of their way to put fluoride in all the water departments all over the country, water supplies. Messes with the pineal gland, excuse me, it's water. Messes with the pineal gland and lowers IQ, makes people lethargic. You think it was intentional? Alright, back to the Phoenix Journal. Again, all this stuff connects, that's why I jump around. While Israel has long posed as a dependable U.S. ally, Mossad staff officers despised both the CIA and FBI as players who can't play and as amateurs at the spook trade. The Mossad habitually fed CIA agents scant and doctored and misleading information, and even in serious cases where American lives were at stake. And they still do it, it says here. Just look around, and of course we know some of this current material I just went over. This New Age and New World Order, the Jewish Utopia by Professor Higger material I went over. I made videos on all these books I just showed you. Underground Tunnels is 21 if it's done. But here's two that I thought were really important I made. And one was 67, the Jewish Utopia. There's several videos on that. And apparently 8 Protocols of Zion, the instruction manual for what they plan on doing to us, or what they have done. You can go online and find these free, both of these. But the Ultimate World Order by Robert Williams. They found a book in a library in Texas that told about the Jewish utopia and the plans for the rest of us. And Robert Williams was a Secret Service agent for the USA, retired military. Had his own, his own magazine. And he found a book in the library in Texas called The Jewish Utopia. And what it said was quite unbelievable. I made several videos you can go watch. Back to the Phoenix Journals. In March 1984, for instance, when William Buckley, the CIA's station chief in Beirut, Lebanon, was kidnapped, a group of high-level national security officers flew from Washington to Israel to plead for help from Nahum Adami, the then acting chief of the Mossad. So it's a big curiosity to me, and I've seen this in other material. Why is the United States going to Israel for help? Israel is, I know, the Jews control, not all Jews, but Illuminati types, banksters, and other elites, secret societies, control the world. And now they've got this country, Palestine's country, they can call their homeland Israel. But you would think that we, technologically and educated as we are, that our own CIA and FBI and other Secret Service agencies would not have to be going to Israel for help. There's something wrong with this picture. Israel espionage, though its extensive network of informants, had a good idea where many of the hostages were being held, and by whom. After all, you financed this well-oiled network of terror. But although Israeli spymaster Adami pretended to be helpful in the search for Buckley, in truth he had no intentions of helping the Americans. Remember that book I told you to buy by Victor Ostrowski? All this is in there, FYI. In any event, Adami and his Mossad staff fed the CIA only outdated and vague intelligence about Buckley's whereabouts. The outcome was that hapless American intelligence officer, the hapless American intelligence officer, Mr. Buckley, was tortured for months and then brutally murdered. According to this author of that book, by way of deception, Adami enjoyed boasting about his merciless manipulation of USA agents in their executive dining room where Mossad officers took their meals. So they were mercilessly manipulating U.S. agents in their executive dining room where Mossad officers took their meals. What do those, he says here, MF, we know what MF means, Americans think? Maybe they want us to get the hostages for them, too. What are they, crazy? So that's what this author wrote in the book. If not crazy, the CIA certainly proved credulous and simple-minded in its profitless dealings with the Mossad. Remember, there were Mossad agents, according to lots of material. But people were arrested, Israeli people, during 9/11 in white vans, and then there were some Israelis on top of a New Jersey building videoing this, and a lot of connections to Israel. And remember, 9/11 was the kickoff to fool the event that the American people would support, overthrowing all the countries in the Middle East, murdering all the people, bombing all the buildings, and now shipping whatever leftover people there are, continuing 100,000 or more just to the United States a year, according to this material I've been going over. All over the world, there is a plan. It's been going on. All right. So the CIA were being played by Mossad. The price for this one-sided alliance in which Israeli espionage took what it could, often a great deal, but gave nothing or little in return, was ultimately paid in American blood and lives. Least we not forget since 1913, when they took over the American money supply, created the Federal Reserve, which is not federal, Rothschilds, Illuminati types, banksters, and they've been sucking money out of the U.S. system ever since, crashing the system 8 times, fleecing stuff from the rest of us, disposing all the farmers and industrial business owners and all that. It's not going to wind up good at the end here. Do you think? On the morning of October 23, 1983, a suicide bomber rammed his truck loaded with explosives through the perimeter of the Beirut Marine Battalion bivouac in Beirut. The blast killed 241 American fighting men. Months earlier, the Mossad had all the information regarding the whole operation, including the Mercedes truck, and that was fitted with unusually large compartments in an underworld garage. The Mossad knew that it was to be used in a major terrorist attack on U.S. target. Information poured into the Mossad circle, and they just continued to assist and refused to even give hints to you, their most beloved brother ally. And even Benjamin Netanyahu recently came to the United States, had a meeting with President Donald Trump, and said, we're America's best friend, and America is our best friend. They control our bank, the Federal Reserve. They control the money. They spend trillions on all these New Age, New World Order takeover destruction program, and the tab, the bill, is left to the USA taxpayers. And according to a recent statistic I watched on a video, and don't believe everything I say, you got to look up stuff also. But apparently every baby that's born now is already in debt up to $1 million, their share of the taxes to be paid. Ostrowski, that book, related that he was, for example, one of the several lower-ranking Mossad officers who warned about the tragic consequences of withholding this vital information, intelligence from U.S. security. So the author of that book that I ordered, that I told you to buy, he was involved, and he was warning his own leaders, we got to tell the USA government, the people. I said at the time that the American soldiers killed in Beirut would be on our minds longer than our own casualties, because they'd come in with good faith. The response from his Mossad superiors when he complained, no, we're not here to protect the Americans. They're a big country. Adami explained, hey, they wanted to stick their nose into this Lebanon thing, let them pay the price. The price for mistaking Israel and its callous Secret Service for a dependable ally was paid, not merely by the 241 fallen Marines and their grieving families, nor by the long-suffering hostages and those among them who met death in captivity, but by all the world's citizens, especially the American citizens. Your taxpayers, U.S. people, have poured out hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in one form or another to totally support Israel over the years. You mounted larger military, political, and diplomatic efforts to satisfy Israel's demands than for any other goal in your history. Wow. They really put the screws to the USA. We have a vast country. All of us should be doing quite well. We should have a huge surplus of gross national product profits. But they don't have good plans for us. If you go look up the Protocols of Zion or the Jewish Utopia, those books I just showed you, and all these other books, underground facilities, fluoride in the air now with sky spraying, in the water, in toothpaste, and apparently now in food. GMOs and other nasties, toxins, poisons. Who owns all these big manufacturing facilities? We all know. A lot of us should stop buying any name brand stuff. Go with local manufactured goods, farm goods. The price for mistaking Israel and its callous secret service for a dependable ally was paid, not merely by the 241 Marines, but by the American citizens. We have poured out billions of dollars. We've mounted military wars even against Iraq, all those countries since 9/11. The burden is even bigger this day. Look what is happening today. And you couldn't be more confident that that's true when you look at what's been happening since then and what's going on now. One of the biggest insults I've ever seen the American people faced with was this most recent election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. It was bizarre. We had to pick between crazy number one and crazy number two. And a lot of us are hoping that President Donald Trump is not crazy, will do the right thing. But I guess that remains to be seen. Some of the things that have happened already are a bit concerning to people. But that's what they did when George Bush was in office, when Barack Obama came along. Change was going to happen. So everybody jumped on the bandwagon, including me the first time. Sent him in $100. I was so upset with George Bush, who wanted to be king, so he didn't have to have anybody to interface with to make decisions. He wished he were king. Okay, this page 92 on this Phoenix Journal. I promise you that there is a planned and most heinous incident about to happen, staged, orchestrated, and will be perpetrated by Israel, and you continue to quarrel over whether or not there are valuable spacemen. So there's a lot of distractions out there, especially now with Antarctica and aliens and disclosure, planet Nibiru, even methane gas bubbles in the news yesterday in Russia, pole shifting, Yellowstone, terrorism, plagues, stock market crashing. But anyways, back in 1990, this author warned that there was a hideous event planned. How right was he? All right, I'm going to try to finish up this video. See what I can do with this page here. More history, more information. 1990. Mossad bribes. What's funny about this thing is they're trying to take out Assad in 2017 now. They've been after that country for 6-7 years. Obliterated. Destroyed. Look at all those refugees leaving all the Middle East. shipped into European countries, United States. Should be obvious to people what's going on there. But anyways, Assad bribes. Yes, it gets worse while we're on the subject. The American taxpayers paid a bribe to Syrian President Assad to obtain his cooperation in the Persian Gulf crisis and to relinquish claim to the Golan Heights, some of the Palestinians' land, in favor of Israel. I did not say to Syria, I said to Assad. So they're going to give Assad money, not to Syria. Personally, for his own private, personal pocket, $400 million, and that was only half. Assad will receive a total bribe of $800 million to be paid to him personally through the deal. Half of this amount is to be furnished by U.S. taxpayers. The remainder to be split evenly between the Saudis and the Kuwaiti royal government. This is in addition to the official gratuities that were granted to Assad during the Secretary of State James Baker's recent official visit to Damascus. Those include the granting of the most favored nation trading status with the U.S. Meanwhile, President Bush continues to serenade the world about the magnificent cooperation the U.S. is receiving from the rest of the world in facing down Saddam Hussein. Of the U.S. taxpayers' share, $200 million will be provided through the CIA, and $200 million will be funneled through Israel. In return, Assad agrees to boost his troop commitment to the U.S.-led international force to a total of 20,000 troops. He will also dispatch trained assassins to Iraq, to penetrate the enemy's defenses and kill prominent Iraq officials, with President Saddam Hussein himself as a primary target. Remember, this is 1990 or before. This, of course, is cover to allow the Mossad to make the penetration under cover of the Syrian terrorist. Assad also agrees to release to the CIA and Israel Mossad, spy agency, the intelligence data concerning Iran. Here we go. Iraq war, as well as information on the activities of various Palestinian Liberation Organization factions, which have based their operations in Syria. The most important provision, however, is this evil marriage of convenience and non-conscience was a deal reached between Assad and Israel's new foreign minister, David Levy. Syria's permanent renunciation of all claim to the Golan Heights, a strategically vital Syrian territory seized by Israel during the 1967 Six-Day War. There seems to be no humor which cannot be purchased. There seems to be no honor. Sorry about my reading. There seems to be no honor which cannot be purchased for a fee. No amount of blood or lives which cannot be bought for a sum of money. Your world is indeed sick, beloved ones. That would be this author speaking. Since Assad made it an article of faith for years to recover the Golan Heights, so he promised his people he was going to recover that. This deal was highly secret. But in the Middle East, even the deepest secrets never stay the way they are for very long. Satan tells of his comrades, as pleases and begets him, the larger benefit. So I suppose a lot of those people in Syria who were assassinated might have been a lot of people who found out about the double dealing. Decent, honest Syrian citizens, military leaders, whatever. I have already told you of the incidents of brutal massacres resulting over the transaction. So, like I just said, a lot of people who found out about this were massacred. If they were leader of a town and the whole town found out, they were all massacred. They were in cahoots with the U.S. government at the time to take down Iraq before 9/11. And apparently that was a lot of deception also, which is in this document. Back to the document. Realizing the inability to keep secrets even from each other. Okay, the author says, do you really question the possibility of us being able to come up with secret plans for invasions and attacks and probable incidences and what they are planned to be? We would not even be considered a respectable investigator if we failed to learn such things. These are massive plans, and you need to know something. God does not have to purchase or bargain for his information. There are a few godly men remaining who care about you and your world, and blessings unlimited be unto them. Blessings unlimited be unto them. And I agree. There's a lot of people in powerful positions who do care. I do pray to God that they get a stronger hand in things and overcome the evil folks. So he says here, the title is, They Must Give You a Phony War. The debate rages in the forefront, while the undercover truth is that the plans are all laid, and all that remains is for the manipulation of the people. That would be of Europe and the U.S. and elsewhere. The American-Iraq confrontation has now assumed a character of all prior phony war, phony peace situations. These include both world wars. This researcher author into the Phoenix Journals is saying what I've been saying. This includes both world wars, the Israeli-British-French attack on Gamal, Nasser's Egypt in 1956, and most recently, the attack on Panama. All planned stuff. We will just set aside ones like Grenada, El Salvador for the present time. As in those prior situations, the American, British, Israeli, and Egyptian media are now preparing the international community for war against Iraq. And the pressure increases every day. The major distraction to today's events brings your own budget quarrels in Congress. So they do that also whenever there's too much we the citizens, we the people, focus on something going on. They do come up with a distraction all the time, I notice. So this guy here recognizes that too. So whether it's the shutting down the government or whatever they're doing or some kind of shooting, you're not going to be looking over there at the Middle East. And ones that don't have time to attend a simple thing like a massive nuclear world war. So they talk about a nuclear world war. Will they do that if they can't gain their control the other way through deception? Increasingly, major public opinions organs such as the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and of course important TV commentators, are assembling programs justifying an attack on Saddam Hussein as a combination of Julius Caesar and Adolf Hitler. So they're trying to portray Saddam Hussein as an evil man. It matters not what the polls actually show or the opinions actually are. Only the people in favor are identified and allowed to comment. So we don't find out about the truth and the people who don't want this to happen. The newspapers are controlled, news TV stations and all that. TV programming, billboards, movies. It's all mind control. And a lot of us know it. Further, the polls are nothing and non-existent. they can design the polls, whatever they need. They have these, what I call fakesters, pollsters. So they can go in certain communities, very conservative, very liberal, and come up with the polls you want. That's what they get paid to do. Then they can put those polls in the newspaper and try to tell the public that's the way it is. Mind control. A suitable percentage of support is conjured, showing growth of popularity and support and thrust upon all your media outlets. They mind control us. A lot of people got to know that by now. This is so that you don't have to want to be a lonely dissenter. So a lot of other people, instead of standing up and saying, I don't agree with that, they don't want to be an outcast or a lonely dissenter, so they'll go along. That's how people are, many of them. You will change to the popular side of the opinion polls. As a portion of the phony war, President George Bush has reached understanding with Congress that he will not ask it to declare war on Iraq because, get this, under his diplomatic and military strategy, the American strikes need to appear as a decision of the entire civilized world acting against Iraq under a mandate from the United Nations. So they are deceiving us to no end. Alright, I got one more paragraph here I feel like reading. Under this formula, the upcoming American strike by Israel, so this thing is controlled by Israel, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in his Congress, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. Look it up. While you're looking it up, look up Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and think Spar. See what he said. Look it up. You won't like it. By Israel, the upcoming American strike by Israel, as the case will likely be described by the American, British, Israeli, Egyptian media as part of a new world order being created by the United Nations, and which was so loudly trumpeted by Bush in his most recent address. So just look up George Bush and the words New World Order. Look up the Pope, look up Obama, look up all the leaders. They're calling for a New World Order, globalization. Not too good. Read the Jewish Utopia by Professor Hager. Some of the other videos I made. Not too good. This formula repeats almost literally the propaganda techniques employed by the US, Britain, and the Soviet Union against Germany and its allies in both world wars. Germany never stood a chance, I'm finding out now. Doesn't anyone remember anything? That's what this author says. The only major difference is that during those wars, there was no United Nations, and therefore Congress had to declare war in order to engage in hostilities. You no longer need the inconvenience. It can now be done through executive order as the command of the United Nations Security Council, of which the major powers herein listed make all the rules. Given the existence of the UN, Bush plans to employ the exact same device used by Presidents Harry Truman, John Kennedy, and Lyndon Johnson in the American wars in the Korea and Southeast Asia, hostilities justified by public opinion polls, and public has been deceived, supported by intensive propaganda, that's for sure, describing the enemy as a threat to the U.S. security. They do that all the time. And the next people are going to be the anti-Semites, or the ones who are aware of what's going on, called anti-government belligerents. What do they call them in Iraq? Insurgents. It is officially called by the bureaucrats as the domino theory and the American way of life. Notably, in Korea and Vietnam wars, Congress chose not to declare war against North Korea, Communist China, or North Vietnam, but relied on the public support gleaned from polls and on the Tonkin Bay resolutions. Now look around you. and look around and see who your friends are in the world and who you absorb as refugees and prime trading partners. Well, I've shared some more with the Phoenix Journals. That was the plan, was to get the information out there to people that the Phoenix Journals do exist. And for free, you can download 120 of them, like 120 books. And they're just full of crazy information about everything. Internal goings-on, the crooked dealings in the United States, the world, Israel, United Nations, Europe, Germany, historical information. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.